Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Nicole Curbs, and I like to talk about what I'm watching and what I'm reading. And today I figured I'd talk through the books that I've read this year so far. I've read about 12 books, and I'm still gunning for 20. Don't mock me, I'm gonna do it. I can do this. If I can do 31 videos in 31 days, I can definitely read just a couple more books. Okay, so first up is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I mentioned this book in my last video about reading, but this one changed me profoundly. I'm telling you, if you're a creative that is stuck in a rut, then I feel like this is the hug from the pages that you need. Highly recommend this book. Okay, so the next one is How to Write Good. This one's short and sweet and to the point, but ultimately I feel like this is a great read if you're just looking to develop a writing process and you just want to get out of your own head. I really like him as an author. I'm reading another one of his books on comedy right now. Okay, so next up is Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. This was my first Grady Hendrix read, and I'm gonna level with you. I read it because I liked the cover, okay? If that makes me superficial, I'm superficial. But Grady Hendrix books have the coolest covers, I'm telling you. I checked these out from the library, but I'm definitely going to buy them just because I love the covers so much, okay? And I loved this one. This book is about a miserable employee at an IKEA-adjacent store who's asked to stick around for an all-nighter by this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed manager. Basically, there's a string of weird mishaps that have kind of been happening with their displays in the showrooms. Weird brown puddles of goop have just been sitting on some of their furniture, and they kind of can't explain where it's coming from. So they decide to kind of have an all-nighter with a couple employees to kind of patrol and figure out where all of this is coming from. But once they do figure it out, they kind of really wish that they hadn't. Loved this one. If you haven't read any of his books, highly recommend. Okay, so after this one, I kind of went into a Grady Hendrix rabbit hole. So I read My Best Friend's Exorcism. I read this one after reading the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. That title's a mouthful, by the way. So My Best Friend's Exorcism takes place in Charleston and centers around two best friends, Gretchen and Abby. So one summer night when they're out at a beach house with their girlfriends, Gretchen swims out into the water and then she kind of goes missing. And then when her friends find her again, she's just not quite the same. But the only one that can really see that is Abby, because they've been best friends since they were little. This book was a really fast read compared to the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires for some reason, but I really connected to this story because Abby and Gretchen's relationship is just so beautifully illustrated. You watch Abby do everything that she possibly can to save her best friend, even when nobody believes her, even when her parents turn their back on her. And I think that I just love stories about those friendships that withstand the test of time. Such a beautiful read. So the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I read this one first. So after Horror Store, I read this one. And it's loosely connected to My Best Friend's Exorcism, I guess. So I guess I kind of read them out of order, but it didn't really affect my experience with either story. So this one is about a small affluent community in the coastal city of Charleston, South Carolina. And the housewives on this one street, they form a book club where they can gush about true crime books because, of course. And their happy little lives are turned upside down when a stranger kind of appears on their street to take over his late aunt's home, and he's kind of not quite who he says he is. Hendrix wrote something in the foreword of this book about how he was inspired by his mom and moms who are juggling all kinds of things from taking kids to soccer practice, taking pets to the vet, making dinner and taking care of the husband, and also still trying to have their own lives in between all of that. But also ultimately that moms like his would do anything to protect their kids. And that really affected me because as a horror fan, I feel a really common trope and a failing, I think, in the writing of parents is that they're always written as aloof or absent in horror stories. This is definitely kind of how the parents are painted in My Best Friend's Exorcism. They're just kind of obstacles, not people, So I appreciated that he revisited the parents from My Best Friend's Exorcism and gave the moms a story of their own, because moms have lives too, This book covers a lot of themes about social inequality and child abduction, stranger danger, community that doesn't quite act like a community sometimes, appearances, keeping those appearances up for the neighbors, and also how isolating marriage can be sometimes. This was actually a really great read. Highly recommend this one. Okay, so this is like a really gripping novella, Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. It's about a young girl and her history-obsessed dad who takes her on a trip to a naturey part of England where they're from. And they go with some college professor and his students. And they spend a few days living as early English villagers would have. Like I'm talking hunting and gathering and stuff, and making huts and bread and stuff. But her dad is so committed to living like they did back then. When they might sacrifice people or animals to the gods for good crops, so how far is he really willing to go to act the part, what they're all up there studying is this kind of black bog water, and I researched what bog people were because they mentioned that a few times in the book, which, by the way, if you do look that up, heads up, it's really creepy. It's a creepy image to put in your brain, and it's true. But basically, people have combed through this bog water across the world and found trinkets in there, jewelry and stuff, and sometimes furniture or wheels or whatever, but also people, people from 1,000 years ago whose bodies have been preserved in this bog, something about the composition of the minerals or whatever, but their bodies have been preserved down to their fingernails, their facial expressions. It's very interesting. So this book is really short, but it's really intense. Okay, so next up was What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This one was actually a really fast read too, and I think this is my secret. If you're looking to get back into reading, I think you should go with novellas because it helps you build up your stamina, your pacing for stories. So this one's about a soldier in a fictitious country back in olden times who visits a war buddy and his ailing sister in this dilapidated estate. Immediately I thought of Crimson Peak, I guess, when I'm reading it. His sister's really frail, she doesn't seem herself, and they don't really know what's quite wrong with her. Everything around their estate kind of seems off, even the wildlife, the rabbits don't run from people, they just stare at them, which is weird. And the more time they spend on this estate, the more terrifying discoveries they kind of uncover about what's really going on. This one made me realize how much I actually really enjoy mysteries, especially if they're really well written, so they're just doling out little breadcrumbs for you. Another one that I read that was real quick this summer was Irish Gothic by Ronald Kelly. So if you feel like reading a collection of stories based on Irish legends, this one's a really cute, cozy read. I'm a big nerd when it comes to mythology and monsters from different cultures. So this one was a really fun read. I really love this channel on PBS called Monstrum on YouTube. That's where I get a lot of my inspiration or education about all those monsters. So next up is Hide by Kirsten White. Basically, playing hide and go seek in an abandoned theme park for a cash reward. Oh yeah. But what happens if you're found? Do you just lose out on the cash, or do you go missing? Who knows? This one was a really cool read because the kinds of people who are drawn to those competitions or things like that, they wrote out those characters really well. You've got an influencer or two, a tactical soldier person, a couple people who just really need the money, and also a kid who is just really glad to be included. What I thought was also interesting about this one was, so the main character girl is an unhoused person who actually has a really tragic backstory, or basically she was the sole survivor of her dad killing her whole family, and the only reason she survived was because she hid from him, doing a hide and go seek thing, so she's very well cut out for this game. But you're in her head most of the time, and she's actually a really interesting character to follow. And people know of her story, but they don't know who she is. She kind of just tries to keep her identity really mysterious. But yeah, this one's a really good one. If you're a fan of Hunger Games, I guess it kind of has a lot of that battle royale sort of feel to it, except they're not killing each other, but it's a competition, But yeah, so all of the characters were really well written, and I felt the exposition about the abandoned park was really well done. I had never heard of this writer because, basically I forgot about fiction at all for 10 years. But I really like her stuff. She's got another book coming out, or that came out this year, called Mr. Magic, about an old obscure kids TV show. And that's definitely on my list. Okay, so the next one up is Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. This one was a brief novella about a group of like affluent and kind of insufferable pretty people staying in a haunted estate full of yokai, Japanese monsters and demons. I don't really know if I read this too fast or what, but this one felt a little bit chaotic. Like I heard good things about this author, and she has another book that she wrote that was about like mermaids, like a scary story, and it's called like The Salt Grows Heavy. So maybe I'll like that one better. Like this one was all right if you just like want a monster in the house horror story, but it also just kind of felt like, meh, you know, but you can't win them all. Okay, so next up is, I just finished this one, Silver Nitrate by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. So this one follows a sound editor and her best friend who's like a washed up actor, and they meet an aging film director who asks them to like dub a clip of an unreleased film of his, and all hell breaks loose because it's apparently cursed. I really enjoyed reading this one. Haunted movies are kind of a fun story that, you know, they're not really done too often. I guess the only one I can really think of is like The Ring. But she's a really great storyteller, and she weaves a lot of like that nostalgic golden age of filmmaking, like bits and nuggets into this story. It kind of just felt like a love letter to a film nerd, and that film nerd is me. So I loved this one. Gonna read a couple more of hers definitely very soon. Okay, so the one I'm most excited about. Okay, so Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. Oh my gulay. I am obsessed with this book. Okay, so this one was described as a cozy kitchen mystery by Filipino-American author Mia P. Manansala, and it follows Leela as she is helping to turn her Auntie Rosie's restaurant around until one of their patrons ends up dead at his table in their restaurant. So honestly, like pretentious 19-year-old me, I feel like would have like rolled her eyes at this, because I think that sometimes, like, especially like if you're a reader and a kid, you know, you're encouraged to read some of these like really intense epics, like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, one of those really thick with two C's like Anne Rice books, or Stephen King, you know. And yes, those are definitely great. But honestly, there's also like so much room on my bookshelf for stories that are like this. Stories with like a sprinkle of romance and a little bit of a murder mystery, and it feels very lighthearted and digestible. This one's just really cute. I've already started on the second book in the series, and I might read these again when I'm just like needing a pick-me-up. It just felt like that. Like it just felt like a bowl of comfort food. It's just so good, so good. And also just want to note here, like as a half white, half Filipino, as a Filipino, I connected so deeply with the characters and the way that they like express their love through food. And for a long time, I felt like really disconnected from my heritage because I didn't speak the language. I'd never been to the Philippines, or, you know, also ultimately because I'm not fully Filipino. But, you know, honestly, like the heroine, like the main character, Leela, makes me feel so seen and represented. And there's not a lot of heroines in books or movies or TV that look like me. So when I do see one, it just kind of really makes my heart sing. And also want to note, there's she's got a dog in the book that's a wiener dog named Laganisa, and I have a wiener dog and his name's Buster. So I felt like I had to read it, and I'm obsessed with it. Look at him. Hold on. Look at him. Look at him. He's perfect. Have you ever seen a more beautiful boy in the whole world? Look at him. I love you. I would kill for you. I would die for you. He's my prince. Look at him. He's the prince. His name's Buster, and he's 10. He was born in my closet with his sister Darcy. I love them so much. They're the best. Okay, so that's what I read this year so far, and this is what I'm reading now. If I finish all of these before the year is over, then like I've hit my reading goal. Okay, so that's what I read this year, and this is what I'm reading now. So I've got Improvised by Nick Napier. I've got The Comic Toolbox by John Voorhouse. got The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron and Homicide and Hello Hello. But yes, I can't wait to continue my little reading journey that I've started this year. And if I finish these, then I'll be at 16. And if I read another 2 from Mia Pimentel, then I'll be at 18. So that just gives me 2 more books that I need to read in the next couple days. And then I can hit my goal of 20. So if you can give me a recommendation for 2 really short books, then I'm there. I did it. So what are you reading right now? Do you like cozy kitchen mysteries? Did you know that that was a thing? Do you have a different weird subgenre that I need to know about? Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.